to think about this business.
I would disagree. I know exactly what to think about it. And yeah, you should read the Barbara Icahs's article in the Quad City Times this morning with her interview with Dr. Lou Katz, the epidemiologist. And he's very clear about this.
It's dang. We don't want to be a hermit. We don't want to be someone who doesn't take it seriously, and then it sneaks up and bites us.
Well, that's we've seen that happen again and again and again. I mean, just you know, like with Herman Cain.
Yeah, that was very sad. I was very sorry to hear that. I'm sorry to hear anyone who finds themselves in that situation. But at least the weather's beautiful outside today.
Yeah, and we can look at it through our windows.
Yes, and that means that my neighbor is mowing their grass, so it's hopefully they'll be done soon.
Morning, Janelle.
Morning.
Yeah. I always like that clock behind your ear. That way I know what time.
So,
I wonder, do we have a time on this meeting, or is it expected to go on until whatever? What's our timing thought?
Latrice, do you have an end point for this?
I thought we said it was 2 hours, and then we were going to allow an extra hour just in case things went longer.
Okay.
That's what we registered for the interpreter for. I mean, for the captioner, sorry.
Yeah, so that's for 2.5.
3 hours is total. 10 to 1.
Okay. So we're still going to do the half-hour comments and try to hold it to that?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we won't have a chance to have a meeting because people. Latrice, tell Janelle and Reverend Pecora about our registration and our limitation.
Yeah, we only have the account for 100 guests, and last night when I would have changed it, but last night when I checked, it was 81 or 82, and then this morning it was 119, and then 10 minutes later it was 129.
Oh my.
So I have it set to live stream on YouTube right now, though. So I'm sending the link to Facebook so that we can live stream it onto YouTube and Facebook so that people can they can watch it. It's live on YouTube now, but obviously the meeting doesn't start until 10. I just wanted to make sure that it worked.
Great. So how will people let you know that they want to make a statement? Will they use the chat room, or how will that work?
I don't know. Am I leading the meeting, or are you leading the meeting?
Yeah, but you, Latrice, are the host. So you.
Yeah, you're the host. So.
I mean, I think. How do you want to do it? Do you want it to be?
Well, how do you normally do it? How do people let you know as the host that they want to be recognized?
You usually tell them that they can speak, and then they unmute themselves and they speak.
Like, but how will I know that someone wants to speak?
They usually just start speaking. I don't have it set to where I'm muting people, but I do have the capability to mute people.
Well, yes, you should be muting people. I mean, otherwise we'll have people jumping in as we've had in past meetings, live meetings, and disrupting the meeting. And I think that we might be able to expect that.
Yeah.
The police department, from police officers.
So how do we want to ask people to raise their hands, maybe?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you could ask people to raise their hands. Well, let Janelle come back and we have this conversation. Here she is. So oh, there she goes.
I'm back.
Okay. So what I'm saying is that Latrice should, as host, should control muting. just as you do at the, like, for example, at the last two commission meetings. You can.
I think,
Let me finish. Richard,
okay.
let me finish, please. Okay. And then I think people raise their hands. And I think Janelle as chair should identify them. And then once they're identified, Latrice, you unmute them for their comments.
Okay. Okay.
But how will I see them raise their hand? I'm not going to see 100 people. That's my concern.
Yeah, actually, how do people raise their hands on?
Pardon me?
I actually, but here, I'm raising my hand now. Okay, I'm gonna raise my hand. How is that shown?
I
It
haven't
comes
seen.
up in the screen for your photo that you have a hand up.
Okay, I'm about to see, and it's blocking my screen. Yeah, okay. So where does it say, I raise my hand? Well, Richard, you raise your hand. You go to participant. No. Actually, Richard, go to the participant icon, and it says in there on the bottom row, it says raise hand, a whole list of circles. First one is raise hand.
Well, at first I've got to find what you're talking about because I don't see anything like
Just
that.
hover your mouse over the bottom of your screen and you should get
I've got an
mutes.
iPad. I'm on an iPad. I
I
don't have
think
a-
maybe you hover your mouse over the top of your screen. I think if it's an iPad.
Well, people are going to be on phones and iPads, and they're not all going to be on the same thing. I'm looking at my screen. I don't see anything like what you've just described. So I'm sort of looking at it and wondering, well,
Do you see a bar on the bottom of the screen that says participant, chat, screen share, record, closed caption?
no, I don't
react?
see any of that.
Well, move your cursor around your screen.
I don't have a
So that
cursor.
pops.
I don't have a cursor.
Use
I
your
have an
finger
iPad.
around your screen. Yeah, well, use your finger around your screen, the touch screen.
Okay, but I'm doing that, but it's not. I see at the top of my thing, there's a bar that says mute, stop videos, share content, participants. Then it says more. And then I go,
Okay, participant.
Participants.
Participants. Okay, let's see.
You
Participants.
see now where it says raise hand?
Yes, I do.
Hit raise hand.
I just raised my hand. I punched that.
All right, yeah, so I see it now. It's, yeah, if you're looking at the participants, you will see that the list of participants and the ones that have their hands raised, have little raised hands next to their names.
Yeah, I got you. Well, isn't that
Okay.
interesting?
So Latrice, are you saying that I should leave that participants menu open and then I can call on people as they raise their hands?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I'm trying to monitor this, the YouTube and the list and Facebook streaming.
Yeah. So how did you guys how did you take your little hand down? Did you affirmatively click on it again?
You just click the raise hand again.
Okay. And then it makes it go away. Very good.
Makes
Thanks.
it go away.
Yep.
And
I
that's,
think
well, you need to announce to Latrice who she's unmuting. You call upon them, okay? Yeah, you're gonna ask them to raise their hands. That's found in the participant, in the participant box. Ask them to raise their hands and you call upon them. When you call upon them, the Latrice will unmute them. She will find them and unmute them.
Okay. And so I guess there's really no way to tell ahead of time how many people will want to speak.
No. No, I mean, it'll be people who raise their hands. Which is probably which is the most democratic way. They're
Yeah,
here on the,
well, and we'll just tell them that whoever we don't get to in the first go around, we'll have another at the end. Hi,
okay,
Ruby.
but yeah,
Good morning.
but at the same time, we need to keep the time limited. Hi, Ruby. Need to keep the time limited for each speaker. Otherwise, we'll have one or two, three speakers fill up the whole half hour,
Yeah.
and that's not.
Well, if it's
not
okay,
productive.
if it's okay, I'm going to suggest 3 minutes or less, just to
That's-
really
Yeah.
get to the heart of it.
Yes.
And
There you go.
if you want to speak again at the end, you may do.
I totally agree.
Okay.
with it.
Do we have
it's-
an agenda for this?
Yes.
It's 10 o'clock. I'm gonna admit everyone and then screen share the agenda.
Thanks.
Okay.
It was over at 10, so however long it took.
Do we know who sent the agenda?
It,
Maybe everybody should be muted.
Hello.
thanks, Latrice. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. It is now 10:02. My name is Janelle Swanberg. I am the current chair of the Davenport Civil Rights Commission. I want to welcome everyone to today's meeting. The commission certainly values all participation at this meeting. Our purpose in calling this special meeting of the commission is to gather input from our community in the wake of the tragic killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis. We as a community are shocked, saddened, and called to action by his death. The commission is charged not only to hear cases that come before it, but also to study the existence, character, causes, and extent of discrimination and unfair practices in our city, and to attempt to eliminate that discrimination. The commission feels there is no more appropriate time for us to put action to this charge. On June 4th, to their great credit, Mayor Madsen and Police Chief Sikorsky joined protesters at Vanderveer Park and knelt with community members in solidarity. Their joint statement regarding this action was, "We as a city and as a police department are committed to taking the time to listen and understand. The diversity of Davenport is the heartbeat of who we are, and now more than ever, we must stand together, strengthening our resolve to continue on a path for a better tomorrow for all. Our community is defined by our citizens who value respectful dialogue to move important issues forward for the benefit of all our citizens." We are impressed with those words, and we do not regard them as mere lip service. And in the spirit of those words, we are coming together today to foster a community conversation in the same way conversations are occurring across our state and across our country. Our goal is to strengthen police and minority relations in order to help us all find a better way forward in Davenport. The commission has heard of personal stories from some community members, and we may hear more today. But whatever has happened in the past, we want to avoid a George Floyd incident in Davenport. The fact is, we live in a state where Black persons are incarcerated at a rate 10 times that of white persons. We live in a society where Black parents feel they must have the talk with their sons about police and neighbor interactions, where they must educate their children about sundown neighborhoods, and they must steel their children for growing up in an overwhelmingly white and often racist society. That is the backdrop for today's meeting. As I said, we welcome all to today's meeting, especially Mayor Madsen, Chief Sikorsky, and members of the Davenport Police Department. We want you to know that we appreciate and value your service to our community. Yours is vital and sometimes dangerous work, and it is a crucial component of our community. We are mindful that this is a particularly fraught time for your department, and we appreciate your taking the time to be with us today. We want you to know that this meeting is not about laying blame, but rather it is an opportunity for all of us to hear each other and to hope that the city can achieve an action plan that will truly be about racial and social justice, a plan that will support the entire community, especially the minority community, as well as police officers and city officials. We know that Chief Sikorsky and his department have been working long and hard on many of the issues open for discussion today. We applaud that work and pledge today to work with you to find the best path forward. We have not determined that this would be our only such meeting, and based on what happens today, other meetings with different stakeholders may be set. Again, our goal is not to lay blame, but rather to openly and honestly discuss the hard issue of racial disparities in our community. This is a painful, difficult conversation, but it is a conversation that needs to be had, and the time for it, we feel, is now. With that, I would invite members of the public to address the commission, to make comments, to provide us input. And the way we will do that is to have people indicate that they would like to speak by raising their hand by going to the participants icon at the bottom of your computer screen. Although my problem is I am not able to see all, Latrice, help me out here. I'm not able to see all the participants. Can you see them?
There's 99 of them. If you click participants at the bottom of
Okay,
your
yes,
screen.
I'm getting something that pops up on, it comes up at the top. There we go. So Brian Wingert, and then Jordan Snyder.
Okay, let's just take them in order. Mr. Wingert, please go ahead. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so my thing is I have researched this, and I researched it on one specific thing, and those are cannabis arrests in the city of Davenport. And what I researched and what I found was similar to what the ACLU found about 3 months ago, and that's in the city of Davenport. Even though blacks and whites smoke cannabis at the same rate, the exact same rate, Black people are 8 times more likely to be arrested for cannabis than white people in the city of Davenport. I have came to the city council with this information at least 10 times in the last year, only to fall on deaf ears. And I'm just wondering, if there's anything being done about it, and if what kind of external investigation we can do to find out why Black people in the city of Davenport are being arrested just for cannabis 8 times as much. I looked up the other things too, and it's not as bad, but 8 times on cannabis, that's unacceptable in any time. And like I said, every time I've came to the city council, it's fallen on deaf ears. Mayor Madsen, you were city council person the first time I came with it, and you've been there a couple times as mayor when I came with it, and still nothing's being done about it.
Thank you, Mr. Wingert. Jordan Schneider.
Good morning, everyone. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much for doing this. So I want to say that I'm not from Davenport. I've only lived here since 2007, and I live what is sort of somewhat euphemistically called the hood, south of Locust. And my experience as a white person coming from somewhere else, when we first arrived, within the first 2 years, I remember my ex-husband turning to me and saying, "Do you think that there's a lot of prejudice here against Black people?" And we were in the car, and I remember going, "Oh my God, yeah, I was thinking the same thing." And then skip forward years later, when I ran for city council, what I heard from people of color was, "Don't be Black and be out at night." And that shocked me. And what I think that there is I think that there's a difference in policing among the police officers. There are amazing police officers, amazing, who are what you expect of a police officer. The person you trust, the person who will help you, the person who's kind and nice, right? The person who upholds the law and your rights. Among them, that's Sergeant Harris. And there are other officers. But then there are officers who I'm not quite sure why. I'm not sure if it's because of training, of what's going on in their lives internally, if maybe when they came upon me, the last call was a bad call, but where it was like, "Don't talk to me like that. Why are you acting like that? We're both human beings." And these were never cases where I was violating the law. These were cases where I had called for help, either shots fired, which unfortunately I have quite an occasion to do where I live, or just something is going on in the neighborhood. So I think that there has to be some sort of, I don't know, sabbatical training, dialogue among the officers to express their frustrations, and then beyond that, how to deal with that, and then come back to the community. One really telling thing is that once there's a perception, it's really hard to get rid of those perceptions. And I remember a long time ago when I invited Sergeant Harris to one of my classes, he told me a story where he had said to a group of young Black males, "Hey, how are you guys doing tonight?" And they went, "We're not doing anything. We haven't done anything." They were immediately on alert. And he said, "I didn't ask you what you were doing. I asked you how you were doing." So that communication, everything starts and begins and ends with communication. And somehow we need to fix or engage more communication between people of color and officers, because we have to see officers as human beings who have a stressful job. Yet at the same time, we have to see our citizens who are of color, many of them at the low end of the socioeconomic scale, understanding what makes them react and act and all the things that they're dealing with in their life. And we have to come together as a community.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Latrice, I can no longer see anyone's hand, so I'm gonna have to rely on you to just call on the next person, can you?
Amber Badola was next, and then there's Jeff and Lisa Simpson.
Okay. Hi. I wanted to kind of just recommend or put on the table the idea of having a citizens review board. Several other cities, including like Las Vegas, has done this as a way to address disproportionality within the police force. This way it would take, it wouldn't be the police policing the police, it would be citizens being able to review complaints of racial bias. And there's several long reports with a lot of data on how these review boards work and how they've reduced racial bias and disproportionality within the cities that have them. So I won't go into all of that. I just wanted to kind of put that out there as a recommendation. That's something we look into, because I think right now the police supervisors are who are all white. are the ones who are reviewing complaints of racial bias. So I think that that is definitely problematic and definitely not going to address disproportionality. So that is one recommendation. My other issue that I wanted to bring up is something that we are working on as Quad Cities Interfaith, which is removing school resource officers within the schools. When I went to the school board meeting, the police chief was not able to provide any data on the benefit of school resource officers. So I go ahead and put in the chat some data on the negative impact of school resource officers in Iowa, in Scott County, and nationally. So it looks like, you know, in Scott County, the data shows that, let me just read one part to you here. That schools employing police officers have seen an increase in student offenses and school-based arrests as much as 400%. In Scott County, for every 100 students, 20 days of schools are lost due to suspensions. And right now, the state of Iowa recommends that there's one counselor to every 250 students. We currently have one counselor to every 378 students. Iowa recommends one social worker to every 250 students. We currently have one social worker to 8,973 students. So we need more social workers and counselors, not more police officers. In Scott County, which is the worst county in Iowa, and Iowa has the worst data in the country for Black girls, who are more than 9 times as likely to be arrested than white girls in school. My daughter's Black, and so that is, if she's anything like her mom, I got in trouble a lot in school. I have a loud mouth and I was in trouble a lot. So my daughter's only 2 right now, and this is a fear I literally think about every day. If my daughter's anything like her mom, she's not just going to get sent to the detention. She has a 9 times more likely chance of being arrested. So that is something else that I wanted to kind of lay there. If we want to talk about, you know, ending crime and ending disproportionality, it needs to start in the schools. The research shows that a juvenile who has interactions with police under the age of 18 are 7 times more likely to end up in jail and prison as an adult. So that is what I wanted to kind of present, those 2 issues. Thank you. And again, the links to the data is right there in the chat.
Thanks very much. And I would just remind people to try to keep those comments succinct if you can, in the interest of allowing more people to speak. Thank you very much, all.
Okay, the next person is Jeff and Lisa Simpson.
Hey everybody, I am here. I'm concerned about the way that investigations are done in Scott County. And a little background, I'm a seminary student in Chicago, and in 2018, I had the opportunity to work with the people who put together the Chicago Police Task Report for that city. One of the things that just stood out to me was that the investigations that are completed by local district attorneys, county attorneys, there seems to be a conflict of interest. And I noticed that some major cities throughout the country were taking that responsibility away from the DA. So last fall, during the city council elections, we had a forum, and I did some research about my own home county, Scott County, and Rock Island County, to see what our statistics were as related to police officer fatal shootings and how those investigations turned out. I took the data from 1969 to 2018, and I found a couple surprising things. And one of the good things was I didn't see a whole lot of racial bias as far as the shootings and the investigations that went together. The bad thing was I saw a huge discrepancy between Rock Island and Scott County as to the outcomes of those investigations. It seemed like many of the investigations in Scott County left a lot of suspicion surrounding the shootings. And the ones in Rock Island County, there were a couple that were suspicious, but those were prior to 2008. And I discovered in this research that Rock Island County had developed a integrity task force to do the investigation of police-related shootings. Scott County has not done that. I have the data and I would like to send it forward to whomever would like to look at that, because it is clear and evident that there is a conflict of interest going on. I'm not saying that anything is, I don't want to point the finger or anything, but the impropriety is obvious to the public. And there would be a lot more security in removing those duties from the county attorneys, because we all know there's a relationship, a working relationship between district attorneys and local law enforcement. And I just, to the public, it looks like these victims and their families are not getting fair results. So the other thing I wanted to mention to piggyback on the first speaker, I think it was Jordan, I'm not sure, but at any rate, I presented this data to the respective candidates and the incumbents for city council last October. And I was very disappointed in the incumbent response. It seemed like everybody thought everything was fine. I do know that Pat Peacock was very interested in my data. And one of the incumbents who did not get reelected was also interested. But so there is a problem sometime with reaching our leaders and convincing them that this stuff is going on. So I just wanted to bring that forth today. And again, I will forward this data to anybody who would like to see the report that I came up with. Thanks.
Thank you. And if you could either put that in the chat room or forward it to the Davenport Civil Rights Office, that would be great. Thank you.
Or do both.
Okay, next is Jay Woolen.
Hello, I'm Reverend Jay Woolen. I'm a former member of the DCAP Commission, Davenport Community Advisory Panel that studied racial profiling. And the last report I saw was 2016. And it had shown, although it had been improving over the years, it had shown, obviously, that there was racial profiling by the police. And then the city, for whatever reason, wanted to stop doing this study. But when I left, they had agreed that they would do one for 2017 and 18. I see some of my fellow commission members on here, or former. And I have not at least seen a public meeting. I can't find that online, what the results of that racial equity studies were subsequent to 2016. So I would hope we could get a little more transparency about that, and to continue the study, because I do believe what we do measure, we focus on. And so I would encourage the city to continue the racial profiling studies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is John Vance.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to follow up on what Amber Bardolo said about 6-8 weeks ago. I actually went to a city council meeting and proposed the idea of a community review board, and there seemed to be some interest at the time. And in the following weeks, myself, several others have reached out to the mayor, other city council members, and even some school board members in regards to SROs and just, general police reform. And it seems to have fallen on deaf ears, being as we're having a heck of a time even getting in touch with them, let alone getting a response from anybody. So I'm very curious to see what any of our leaders will have to say today, because we've seen the political theater, we've seen them show up at the rallies and say they support these ideas, but when it comes to actually affecting any sort of meaningful change, they seem reluctant to even participate in the conversation.
Thank you.
Next is Gary Thrapp.
Okay, hi, my name is Gary Thrapp. I own Beyond the Baseline in Davenport. Very active in the community when it comes to kids and our schools. I'm out at the schools each and every year, the last 5 years, talking to kids about violence, about the police. We touch on these issues, not only with the sixth graders out at the school system here in Davenport, but also with all the ninth graders out in our school system. So we've really tried to talk about these very difficult issues. We could talk for hours about what I've learned over at our gym. We also have a lot of community events. We've had 100, 150 kids at our Hoopin' for Change events, 90% of them young African-American males. So we're trying to give good support and working with our families and our community. I just want to touch on one thing of many things we could, and that's the SRO. I've heard a lot of talk about let's get rid of the SRO. That's one of our solutions. But at the same time, then I hear people, the same people say that we need a better relationship between our community and the police. Well, prior to making any judgments, I want you to please see Officer Lovelady as an example at work at Smart Middle School. I want you to see Officer Carter at work at Davenport West High School. I want you to see Officer Sharif at Davenport Central High School. And I would like you to see and experience how Officer Burkle, as an example, works at Wood and Sudlow. These are tremendous, awesome people as police officers, two of which that I just mentioned are African-American, and they are huge resources for us out at these schools. In particular, Officer Lovelady, when I ask every sixth grader if they know who Officer Lovelady is, 90% of the kids raise their hand enthusiastically. They really like Officer Lovelady. And you want to talk about an immediate experience, good experience with the police and getting to know who our police officers are in Davenport. I'm telling you what, there's some great work happening at SMART with Officer Lovelady. So I see it day after day when I'm out at the schools. So be very careful. I just want you to maybe take a step back a little bit. Be very careful how you make decisions without seeing our wonderful people in action. They are doing great work. Now, does that mean we can't improve in a variety of different areas? Oh my heavens, let's go. However, let's be realistic and say, hey, if we truly believe we need our community and the police to come together and work together, well, why not highlight that where it's working real well? And that's the 4 officers that I mentioned. So again, we could talk for hours. I've been out there real hard. I was just out at 14th Brown and 14th Street 2 days ago after a shooting. Went out there with a friend of mine, African-American. We started picking up trash and meeting people just to try to bring some positive energy to that area for those families that might be struggling after a local shooting. So I appreciate the time. I get a little windy, but I want you to know, in my world, we live in a predominantly great community. Can we improve? Oh yes, we can improve. There's no doubt about it. We have a lot of families and kids struggling in our community that need help in each and every way. So how do we do that? We work together and we help bring bring some positive force and some action with them and help them out of their situations. Thank you so much for allowing me to talk.
Thank you.
Next is Kim Brown.
Am I unmuted? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name's Kim Brown and I'm a registered nurse, but I also run a harm reduction organization in the Quad Cities, including the Davenport and Rock Island areas. And I would like to bring up a couple issues that I find particularly alarming. First, I'm not gonna cite because we all heard it, disparities in our arrests. But one of our big pushes with our organization is getting naloxone out into the community so that people can be saved from drug overdose death. And I want to point out one particular problem that we've dealt with over the years, and that's with our Black and brown men who we engage in conversation and talk to about overdose and educate on how to reverse an overdose and save a life. Very willing to take a Narcan kit and carry it and use it. But it's been very prohibitive for many of the Black and brown men in our community to continue to carry it because they have been stopped by law enforcement. They have been asked what that they already know what that kit is. And our kits are injection kits and vials of naloxone because we offer it at no cost, and that's how we can afford to continue to get our product into the community to save lives. Once they get harassed because of a Narcan kit, and let me say this, Narcan is not a controlled substance. You cannot sell it. You can't make any money off of it. It will not hurt you if you're injected with it, but it will undo dead if you have ingested too many opiates. So what they do then is they'll run them in their computer, and if there's anything in their background, and any of us that have been around the Quad Cities for many years, as I have, and raised my children, there can be a lot of things in that computer. And as a result, they usually get harassed, maybe have an old bench warrant, they end up getting taken in. And there in one regard, they've weaponized Narcan by using it indirectly to facilitate unwanted harassment and arrests. I'm going to bring up one other sensitive topic. I work with a lot of people in our community. I also work with sex workers. I know it's a sensitive topic, but I can also assure you that when they're trying to protect themselves from infectious diseases by carrying condoms, if they have had more than 3 condoms on their person at times, those have also been confiscated by law enforcement. We have strategically placed condoms in the community with anonymous volunteers so that that shortage isn't causing harm. So those are just a couple of things I wanted to point out. And one more thing, and I know I've taken too much time, resource officers. I have a grandson that was body slammed last year by a resource officer in the school because him and another young man got in a fight, as boys and girls can do at times. And instead of breaking it up and talking to him, one got body slammed and then both got suspended for 3 days. So it is happening in the schools. And I firmly believe we need not have those resource officers in our schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Deborah Sperry.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'd just like to address a little bit that I heard in the media and read in the media this morning from the police union. It appeared that they were extremely defensive about this meeting, and I'm a little concerned about that. The numbers show that Davenport does have issues with systemic racism and the amount of young Black and brown, particularly boys, but men, that are, number 1, stopped, 2, incarcerated. And so I just wished that perhaps the union, instead of being so defensive, we're not out there to nail the police officers. I don't think most of us. Most of us want to work with the officers. We understand the necessity of officers in our society today, but we'd like to work with them for a better understanding of the community so that our community can work at its best possible level. And I know sometimes it's hard to hear criticism of yourself or your group, but that doesn't mean that you're saying that this is necessarily a bad group. We're not saying that the police officers are necessarily bad officers, but I think that they don't understand the entire scope of systemic racism and what it's done to our community and is still doing. So I would just ask that maybe the union itself take a step back and work with the community a little bit to see if we can work through some of these issues rather than immediately go on the defensive. That's all.
Thank you.
Next, we have Brian Crump. Brian, maybe if you message in the chat box, I'm going to go on to the next person, but I don't see an option to unmute you. I'm not sure if you're connected by audio or not. So the next person is Joni Dimmer.
She's not unmuted.
Hi.
There we go.
Hi, I'm Joni Demmer. I'm a member of One Human Family. And one of the things that I started doing about 2 months ago was contacting the mayors, the police chiefs, and the sheriff's offices on both sides of the river about taking a look at and possibly using the 8 Can't Wait campaign concepts. They're really very powerful. It's 8 short ideas that include no chokeholds, no high-speed chases, and some other things that are really, it seems relatively simple, but I think that they would be very wise to initiate them and to make that part of policing policy. I'll try to share what the 8 Can't Wait concepts are. There is a website, 8can'twait.org, I believe it is. And I did get a call back from Mayor Madsen, which was awesome. And, you know, I'd like to see them just take a look at those 8 ideas and possibly initiate them and make those part of police actions. Thanks.
Thank you.
Sir Janelle, can you hear me? This is Mayor Madsen.
Yes.
Okay, so we have about 20 folks in, or 20 some folks at council. A couple of them would like to make comments. If that's okay, we'll send one at a time, and then we'll just keep going until. Raise your hand who wants to comment. It looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people would like to comment if that's okay.
We'll just need to keep it very short. Each person will have to be very quick. Okay, we're getting short on our
first
time.
Person. So the next person be standing ready to go. Roger that.
Arthur Anderson, lifetime resident of the city of Davenport. I sent out an email with a FOIA request last night to the chair of the commission. I'd like to know, under the Iowa Civil Rights Act, Iowa Code Chapter 216, what legal jurisdiction you hold over the city of Davenport, which is an accredited department since 2006, the biggest one in the state of Iowa and the only one in the Quad Cities. Do you have a written formal complaint against the police department, or did a majority of the commission members vote to hold these hearing sessions? And where were they held? This is the first I've heard of it. Were they equally, equitably in all 8 wards of the city? What are the dates, times, places? How many people attended? This looks like it's awful biased and prejudicial against the police department. And I think you're doing a disservice to people who protect and serve. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lucina Hodges. I will be the first to admit that I've made some bad choices in my life. Grew up in a bad home, didn't know doing drugs was wrong. But the police didn't know that. They just, I've had some bad experiences, starting with November 17th of 2018. I was arrested. Never told why I was arrested, but I was arrested and I was threatened. And then inside the jail, there was a 6-foot cop who put his elbow in my neck, and I have a metal plate and screws in my neck. And I screamed and I continued to tell him to please stop. He did not stop until he was ready. So it does happen. It does happen. Systemic racism is something that a lot of people are scared to talk about, but it's set up to make us fail. Us brown people, it's set up to make us fail. And I was always hopeful, though, that I would just make something of my life. They told me if I went back to school, so I went back. I dropped out of school in 7th grade, but I went back and I got these degrees and I did all this training. But I still, when they go and I get pulled over and harassed, they go back and look at stuff that I did 20 years ago. That's unfair to me. You know, if you told me to change it, I changed my life. Why are you still harassing me? I don't understand. But the Bible says, behold, all things come new. If he forgives me, why can't society? Why can't the police? Why can't the judge? I mean, the way, to me, in my experience, being oppressed all my life, this started when I was 12. So the way the system always worked was that the judge worked together, the public defender worked together. Nobody's going to say this, but I am. The police, all of them work together to make money and to keep us down. And it's unfair because some of us really do change our lives and we deserve a chance. So with that, the oppression, I think that the communication and the way that the system is set up really needs to be changed. I think they need to communicate with us better, give us a chance. Don't look at our skin color because it's just unfair. You know, it's just unfair. There's a lot more that I really want to say, you know, but I don't have a lot of time. But I think that all really needs to be looked into and changed and reformed. Not just, and all cops are not bad. I some of the greatest cops I've met and protected me, and I love them to death. But then you got those really bad ones that don't need to be there, and they need to be investigated. I don't understand why they're still there, especially if they have reports, incidents. You know, I don't understand why they're still even a cop. So I just think that basically the system needs to be reformed as a whole. Where there's oppression, it needs to be fixed because we're gonna keep dying. We're never gonna have hope. But me, I'll always have hope. As bad as I've been treated, I still never give up hope. So I thank God for this day to be able to come and speak about this because I didn't think I was going to live to say it. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Henry Hodges Jr. I'm also a lifetime resident of Davenport, Iowa. Being that the meeting is on police reform, I've really come with a couple suggestions and maybe a couple options. I have been out at the protest. I actually invited Sikorsky to the Vanderbilt protest. In the police reform, I think that we need officers that are not police. We need officers that don't believe because they are the police, they are above the law. We don't need the officer that doesn't want to use his turn signal when we should clearly use turn signals. That's texting and driving, that's talking on his phone because he is the law. We need them to lead by example. We need officers that understand the problems that come along with the Black community. There are mandatory problems that come along with the Black community that some officers may never experience in their whole life. We need officers to understand us, to want to help us as opposed to oppress us. What we need, I remember when I was a kid, there was this guy named Abraham Clinton. And, you know, he had a mental issue, but he was a sweet guy. And he had moments where he had a mental breakdown. And he was approached by some cops that couldn't understand his mental capacity. And it led to his death. And that's because we don't have officers that want to know our problems or want to fix our problems. They want to control our problems. If we can get the officers to come in They don't have to be a psych major or anything like that, but if they come in with the open view to the situation or maybe to the area or to the individual, then we can start to say we're going to reform the police department. But we cannot, and I repeat, we cannot have not one single officer think he's above the law because he is the law. The law is to be upheld. We pay the salaries for these people to help us. I'm not here to defund the police. Let's deflect some of the money from the police department and get officers better training and mental awareness and backgrounds. That's what I would like to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple more very brief comments, please. We're past our time. Thanks.
We have 2 more.
Okay, thanks.
We have 3 more.
Quick, please.
My name is Frank Holly. My name is Frank Holly, and the first thing I want to say is there's been a lot of conversations today, and until we got to this point, nobody was told to rush through their comments. So I take offense to that. First of all,
sir, I'm very sorry. Please say all you want to say.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's part of the problem is that we're marginalized and minimalized quite often, and our issues are pushed to the back burner. So we need to have, a table, a forum for addressing these things. June 4th in the park was just talk. The words were good, but where's the action that goes beyond that dog and pony show? You show up in the park and you do some things and you get your picture on TV and you go through the motion. There's a lot of no action in that event. Racial discrimination studies were conducted 5 or 6 years ago. What happened with that? The findings indicated that there were some issues, but as usual, there was a blaze and immediate fire going up, but the racial discrimination fire is still going on. There was nothing that came out of all that. So we're still talking. We need to stop talking. Receiving hate mail two days ago at my house. I was told when I called to the police department that it was noted. It was noted. And it was minimalized until I insisted that an incident report be generated. I can't receive hate mail and feel threatened at home, my family and myself, and the police just say, oh, yeah, we'll just make a note of it. There needs to be more action taken when these events take place. Urgency of action. John Lewis spoke 50-some years ago about urgency of action. We need it, and we need it now. And 50 years later, we're still having the same conversation. This conversation is just stuff. There's nothing being said here today that hasn't already been said many times. We're still saying the same stuff. We're still talking and talking and talking. No action. And then there's a need to have people at the table who understand our needs. Different people have different priorities. I understand that. White people have different priorities than black people. So we need some black police officers that can relate to black people. As the brother before me just said, if you have an understanding of the people you're dealing with, you can deal with them a little better. Then Davenport, we brought a resolution recommendation to the Davenport Council and for a resolution on hate crime. That was minimalized and marginalized, and there was a resolution instead of an ordinance. We have to address these things at the high level and stop pushing them on the back burner. Last point is reactive versus proactive. One of the earlier speakers, Mr. Thrapp from Beyond the Baseline, he said he went and picked up trash after the shooting. My question to him is, how many times have you picked up trash since the incident? And how many times did you pick up trash out there before the incident and try to create some kind of relationship and start addressing these things before they happen? We can't wait till stuff happens. We have to be more reactive. We have to be empathetic versus sympathetic. And that's not what we need right now. We need more action right now. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to finish my statement.
Thank you.
I don't know if you can hear me, but first of all, my name is Juan Shelton. I own several businesses in Rock Island. And what I want to talk about is I tried to, my son was beaten by the police, and Davenport police. And I tried to talk to, try to get in touch with the mayor, try to get in touch with the Civil Rights Commission. I got a closed door. Couldn't talk to anybody. So, I mean, how do you get to talk to the people about a problem before you present more problems? You know, I could have put it on Facebook. I could have done several things. He was 9 policemen. My son weighs 150 pounds. 9 policemen put him on the ground and hit him with, choked him out, did everything to him. One ran about a block and a half and stomped on his leg. I mean, we talk about ridiculous actions. That's ridiculous to me. It doesn't take 9 policemen, it was actually more than that, to subdue a 150-pound guy. He had his hands up in the air. I have it all here. Everything went to court, and then they found that one of the policemen was wrong with what he did, and then they overturned it. What do? You know, I mean, you can't go to the police for help. You're afraid to go to them for help. So, I mean, and you try to open the doors to talk to somebody, and you can't talk to anybody. I mean, I need a solution for this, because I can't let this rest with what happened to my son. You can look it up in the files. That's why I have this shirt on. Things like this just can't keep happening. When we're conditioned as kids to listen to police, do what you're supposed to do, but what everybody here, most of the people here were conditioned as everything black is bad. When you turn on the TV, when I was a child, oh, that's a black guy, okay, he's dangerous. Or you got to cross the street. We can't keep ignoring that this is happening, and it's happening with the police too. They're like, okay, that black guy, we got to watch him. We got to do this, we got to do that. Regardless, that doesn't have anything to do with what happened to my son, but it doesn't take over 9 policemen to subdue a guy. And I would like to talk to the mayor, Civil Rights Commission, something has to happen about what happened to my son. That policeman is still on the force as far as I know, and there's other ones still on the force. What do we do about this? That's all I have to say, and thank you for listening to me. And I'm sorry. I do have a background in criminal justice. So I worked at the Scott County Jail. I worked in Cleveland law enforcement, and I worked at the Whitmire trying to help with youth and different things like that. So I know the law. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, last one, Janelle.
Thank you.
First of all, I want to praise the Davenport City government who placed no barriers to diminish peaceful protests, even participating in those protests, showing solidarity with those wanting to bring injustices to public awareness. Excuse me. I'm also pleased on how our mayor and police chief responded to the riotous thugs who were neither peaceful nor protesting, but came to kill, burn, and destroy our community. That said, we must all agree that despite our police efforts, Davenport has a gun and violence problem, with shootings occurring all over the city. There are no longer any safe neighborhoods. I have personally had a shooting across the street from my house, waking up another morning to hear of a man found shot dead and left on the side of the road just blocks from my house. Instead of defunding the police department, our city would be far safer by hiring a few additional officers. Are the police perfect? No. Are mistakes made? Of course. Do we have some people that should probably not be in law enforcement? Probably. But we have bad apples who are teachers or politicians or work in our stores. If you discover a bad policeman, retrain them or fire them. You must hold them accountable. If you want to improve law enforcement, give them more training, better equipment, more officers. I think our police are honest, professional, and do a good job risking their lives daily to keep us safe. Do not think that we will somehow be safer by removing funds from our police department, by following the bad examples of Seattle, Minneapolis, or Portland. We are better than that. Thank you.
And I'm sorry, sir, what was your name?
My name is Chester Schaefer.
Thank you.
We have one more, Janelle, then we're good.
Thank you. My apologies. I there was something else I wanted to say, but like he said, we were pressed for time. Just to touch on domestic violence issues. I just experienced that last year. That's actually what I went to school for. The police are not empathetic towards women in that situation. I continued to call the police last year because my actual husband was raping me, but they ignored it. They ignored it, and the third time they came, so when I defended myself, I was arrested. That was so crazy to me. Like I called the police and I got arrested because he was raping me, and I was trying to tell them that they wouldn't listen to me. Okay, so that's another issue that really, really needs to be addressed, because it's not the first time it happened. It happened in Muscatine. I also filed a complaint twice with the police against the police department with internal affairs, and just like the young man that was speaking earlier, I went to the mayor. I called the mayor's office. I called abundance. I even called the FBI. I called civil rights. I called legal aid. Nobody can help me. We need more resources to help us, because we don't have money. Then you just kind of go downhill. You know what I mean? So a lot of us, 8 times out of 10, we ain't gonna have the money for an expensive lawyer. So we need more resources to help us when things like this happen. That's all.
Thank you.
Janelle, we're good here.
Okay, thank you. Latrice, can you tell how many people we have wanting to speak now here?
There are 6 more people.
Can you give one more, Janelle?
Real short, okay, I'm sorry. I waited so long. I don't like to speak like this up here. But what I wanted to say is, for one thing, I've worked with Kim Brown in the harm reduction program, and I know exactly what she means about when we try to give up in the lock zone to people of color to, right away they say, oh, there's no way I'm going to keep needles on me. The police, I'll get thrown in jail. They get me with these needles on me. But another thing is that statement that was made, I saw it yesterday morning when they announced this meeting, and I don't know if it was the police chief who made the statement about, the police they were intelligent. I can't even remember the whole statement. It sounded to me like he felt that they needed no improvements, which everyone needs. Everything needs to be improved, actually. And it just sounded to me like he felt like, they were perfect. There was no improvements needed. So I was just kind of confused by his statement. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
What's your name, ma'am?
We're good here.
I didn't catch the name of the last 2 who spoke.
I think that is maybe Tina Hodges again.
Brenda Guzman.
Mayor Madsen, who was the last person who spoke?
The very last was Brenda Guzman.
Brenda Guzman.
And was it Tina Hodges before that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we're good here. We're all continuing to listen.
Thank you.
Okay, the next person is Andrew DeFries.
I'm just going to ask. We are at about an hour, and we had allotted a half hour. Are commission members okay with hearing these last, what I assume are 6 people?
It's fine.
Can people kind of say?
Yes.
Yes, that's okay.
Okay. Thanks, Latrice. The first is Andrew DeFries.
Hi, yes, thank you. I just want to say that there's a lot of discussion of police reform policies, such as implicit bias training, a rigid and clear officer discipline matrix for holding officers accountable when they violate their duties on the force, and so on. I just want to say right now that these reforms, while good on paper and are requirements for the workers of any organization or company, they've been scrutinized by research by scholars and have found there's been no significant effect on officer-involved shootings or use of force incidents. Furthermore, these policies are fought tooth and nail by police unions across the nation. There have been many documented instances of police unions and their members intimidating, harassing, and embarrassing their critics who advocate even just a slight amount of accountability. It is plain and clear that this is happening in Davenport, as the disgusting statement put out by the Davenport Police Association this week attacking Latrice Lacey and crying about not having police reform discussion on their terms. Mayor Mattson and Chief Sikorsky kneeled with the public in Vanderveer Park, but have they volunteered any changes to the police department? No. We cannot let the police police themselves. They are out of control and only want total impunity to carry out their duties, and will continue to use lethal force against Black and brown people until they are held accountable. The only way to hold the police accountable is not to give the police more funding for training, but in fact, it is to defund the police department and redistribute those funds to the public. The DPD has a budget this year of over $28 million. The Civil Rights Commission has a budget of only $500,000. Public transit, $7 million. Section 8 funds, $4 million. These are reforms the City Council can do right now to affect change. We are in the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, and this month we will have the worst homelessness crisis since the Great Depression due to unemployment benefits being slashed and high rent prices in our community. If we want to prevent crime, we must eliminate poverty. Imagine if we just take several $1 million from the police budget and give it to those departments I mentioned above, among others. Our most vulnerable community members will directly benefit from more affordable housing, more reliable transportation, and so on. More, better funded police is not the answer. Defund the police. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan Foley is next, or Daniel Foley.
Hi, I'm Dan Foley. I live in Davenport, and I wanted to add to a couple things that have already been said. People talked about SROs a little bit in schools, and the other part of the school to prison pipeline, though, is the prisons. So we're talking about building, expanding our juvenile detention center. That's going to cost millions of dollars in addition to the money we already spent on police, which I heard $28 million a year. This is a huge amount of money. We have children in this community that are hungry. We have children in this community that are unhoused or have housing insecurity. And the thing we're building for them is a prison. Our priorities are totally out of whack. If we just took a fraction of this money that we're spending on prisons and police and helped some of these people, it would have a huge impact on our community. And that's the main point I wanted to say. I guess the other point about the prisons is that during the pandemic here, a number of prisons, including here, I believe, have had to reduce their prison population to fight the pandemic because prisons have been a huge source of the virus spreading. And so in other words, we've released a bunch of people from prisons and jails across the country, and we've been fine, okay? It just kind of proves that we don't need to jail this many people. We have proof right now. Maybe it's a bit early to, we don't need more data and we need another few months to evaluate it, but it sure looks like we're getting by fine by putting fewer people in prison. And so we could probably spend less, instead of spending more on prisons and expanding the juvenile detention center, we could probably cut it down from where it is right now even. So anyway, that's the main point I wanted to make. And I appreciate this forum because it's clear that a lot of people do not trust the police and the government. And the way you rebuild that trust is by having transparency and having forums like this to give people an opportunity to say things like this and hopefully make some changes from this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Brad.
Hi, my name is Brad Guerrero. I know we have the data that shows that there is racism and racial profiling going on. I think Jay Wolin went over it. We know they're profiling. So, and based on their attacks on people yesterday on social media, I don't think they're open to hearing any criticism at all. From what I've heard, the director of the commission went to give an implicit bias training at the police department, and she was ran out of the police department basically. And then the chief came to her and told her that they are the ones who are discriminated against. And it's really getting tiring, hearing people coddle the police and act like the police are victims. It's a career choice. And people that are Black and brown don't get to choose how their government treats them. That's different. It's much different. We know that Davenport has a hugely white police force. We know that they don't want to hear about systemic racism. And I think that there needs to be some kind of way to for them to answer when, police investigating police is not something that's going to work anymore. That's unacceptable. People of color in Davenport can't live under this system anymore. It's not tenable. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Reverend Rich Hendricks is next. Do you want to speak? I see you sent a message that said you wanted to lower your hand.
I passed to other members of the community.
So the next person is, oops, I think I hit something to make it go away. I unmuted the person who was next. Was it Kimberly Dotson, maybe?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. I want to give you a little bit of background. I am a professor at the University of Houston Clear Lake. I have a degree, a PhD in criminology. I have a master's and bachelor's degree in criminology and criminal justice. I'm also a retired law enforcement officer. And I work for the Greene County Sheriff's Department in Greenville, Tennessee, and I also work for the United States Marshal Service. So I have an extensive academic background and practice background, and I was a resident of Davenport, Iowa for about 8 years. Although I now live in the Houston area, I was invited by one of the other citizens to participate in this forum. There was just a couple of things that I heard that I thought that I would comment on. First of all, we do know that even though school resource officers may be well-intentioned, that arrest rates do go up when school resource officers are in the schools because of zero tolerance policies. So if there is a fight, if there's an argument, those students are more likely to be processed. And we know that that is more likely to happen to minority students. And we define minority students very broadly, right? That includes individuals who are Black and brown, individuals who are LGBT, and surprisingly, even individuals who have disabilities, right? So someone may have a learning disability and they may act out because they have autism or some other kind of disorder. And those individuals, even though that's symptomatic of their disorder, are more likely to be arrested. So having school resource officers in the schools is not really a good idea. And the other thing with having school resource officers in the schools is that I recently did a study, and it was of Iowa and Illinois school resource officers, and I'd be happy to provide this study to the commission or to the police department, that most of the school resource officers didn't even know what their jobs were. When they were asked specific questions about what their duties were as school resource officers, they weren't really able to even articulate that. One other thing that I would say is that people have been talking about defunding the police. I think that that's an unfortunate term. When we talk about defunding the police, I think a better term would be reallocating resources. Police officers are asked to be all things to everybody in the community. They are asked to be mental health counselors. They're asked to be social workers. They go in and deal with domestic violence cases. My husband and I are both retired law enforcement officers, and when we would respond to domestic violence calls, we always said, we go in for 10 minutes and try to fix what's been wrong for 10 years. It's a very difficult situation to put law enforcement officers in without the proper training. So I think that the research would show that law enforcement officers are undertrained in terms of responding to mental health. One thing that the police department could do immediately was to have social workers or other individuals to go out with them when they answer a call that has to do with mental health. But there needs to be some reallocation and not making the police department responsible for every community problem that there is. And then my final comment would be is that someone said something about diversifying the police department. Research actually shows, and there's dozens of studies to show this, that even officers of color are more likely to pick blue than black or pick blue than brown. So even law enforcement officers who are diverse, who are black and brown, are also more likely to be involved in use of force incidents against citizens. So thinking that you're going to diversify the police department and that alone is going to change the dynamic of police departments in the United States is false. I will leave my comments at that, and I appreciate the commission and the other citizens hearing what I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's one more person, Darius.
Thanks.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just want to say hello to everyone. I am probably like one of the youngest people in here. I'm a 17-year-old Davenport North High School student. I am a Black male in the United States in Davenport. And I will say I completely support the police department and everything that they do. Although some of their tactics are not correct in the way that they respond to things, but I am not a doctor, have a PhD in criminal justice. I am a patient care technician at Trinity. I am a CNA at the call home, and I am a patient server at Genesis. So yes, I have 3 jobs, and I have a diploma in criminal justice. So I'm not well versed in everything to do with the criminology and things like that. But what I will say is that I have rode with police, not in Davenport. I kind of have a fear of going with the police in Davenport, not because of the police directly, but because of the community response to me going with the police. Sometimes when I say I support the police, I have like a fear almost like that I will be retaliated against. But I'm gonna keep it short because I know we're about to run out of time, but I don't think we should defund the police. I don't think that will solve anything. Sending social workers out with the police, from what I've seen, to domestic violence situations, they can get very dangerous. And have an unarmed social worker to go to them kind of things are putting not only herself in danger, but the community in danger as well. I think that we should, one of the things that I heard that was very, I think will solve a lot or help solve, is adding in a review board, a civilian review board that can help disperse the authority of the police, to hold police accountable for things like that. I think that's all I'm gonna say for now, because I know we run out of time, but I just want to make that a point, that I think a review board would be very smart to add into the police. And I don't think we should defund the police at all. That's all.
Thank you. Well, I think that brings to a close the portion of the meeting called public input. So now I'm going to open it up to the commission for the commission's discussion. Do people want to take just a short break? Rich says no. Okay, no break. Well, up on the screen now, you see some of the policing reforms that has been, talked about in other parts of the state. This is certainly not meant, I don't think, to be a list that we would necessarily adhere to or use, but I think it is to give people some idea. It's just a list of what's been done in other parts of the state. So I certainly open it up for the discussion that we want to have. And again, if you want to be recognized, go to the participants area, raise your hand, and Latrice will unmute you and announce you, if you would, Latrice. Thanks.
Janelle, I think that all the members of the commission are unmuted.
Okay.
Can I be heard?
Yes, go ahead, Ethelene.
You know, a while back, Director Lacey asked us why we wanted to be a part of the Civil Rights Commission. And at the time, I was just so new to things. I didn't have an answer that I've held with. I changed it from week to week. But right now it involves leadership and a voice and hands offering protection against discrimination in employment practices, protected rights, and bringing life to and embodying the statutes and ordinances that I've been reading back from years. With that in mind, I was surprised and disheartened a little yesterday with the Quad City Times article about the Union of Professional Police responding to the Davenport Civil Rights Commission. But I've been uplifted by the discussion and the comments that that we've heard this morning, and I feel encouraged to to go on and do what I can do for the protected classes and for civil rights.
Good. Thank you, Ethelene.
Janelle, this is Mike Guster. I'd like to have an opportunity to speak, please.
Go ahead, Mike.
Hey, first of all, I want to thank all the people that have spoken up to this point, and I think we've had a great discussion, and everyone is entitled to be heard and their opinions stated out here and stuff. So, secondly, I want to personally thank Director Lacey and Rabbi Kopp for all that they do, and I just want to really commend them for doing, in particular, Director Lacey for doing what we asked her to do, directed her to do in terms of bringing this public forum together. And I can tell you, as a Black member of this commission, I'm appalled and troubled by the personal attack that was leveled against Director Lacey and Rabbi Cobb concerning this public hearing today. Now, I can tell you that I got to really sit back and consider what happens to other individuals, or in this case, people of color, when they are stopped or approached in the community by police officers. So, you know, when we ask for things and try to get ahead of the curve to try to solve problems before they become problems, or rather before they become problems, you know, we are criticized. If we do nothing, we are criticized. So I can tell you that we here on this commission must always forge forward in terms of trying to make sure that every citizen in this community is afforded the opportunity of equality and economic perspective to achieve work and to be served and protected by this police department. And so I consider the conduct that was leveled against these two individuals on this commission as unprofessional, unwarranted, and a very clear distraction of the work this commission is trying to do. So I want to thank everybody that spoke out today, and I want to encourage the mayor and our police chief for us to continue a conversation of action where we can solve problems that affect this community, because we don't need to see a George Floyd moment in Davenport. We need to rise above this fracas of this distraction that we see in the media to make Davenport a place where we all can live and feel safe in this community. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. And I would bring to everyone's attention, Mayor Madsen, and I think Chief Sikorsky did extend to the commission an invitation for at least one of us to sit on the DCAP group. And so, you know, I think Mike has indicated he might be interested in doing that. If other people are interested, we should discuss that as well. So you know, that is going to be a continuation of this discussion as well.
First of all, let me thank Mike for his very kind words, and let me thank everyone who spoke today. We really have no intention of creating division in our community, but rather our goal is to help to make our community a more welcoming and inclusive community where all its citizens, all its residents are respected and treated with dignity. And sometimes, as we even heard today, that doesn't happen. I think we have to look at why that doesn't happen and how can we change that. I think one element is an issue of trust. I think that there is a level of distrust that leads to a stereotyping that winds up in targeting people of color. And I think there's a level of distrust on the other side also. How do we get the police in the minority communities to increase their levels of trust? And one way that I see is that we need to bring them together to get to know each other personally, know each other. When you get to know people face to face, you learn to feel comfortable with them. You learn to open yourselves up to them. And I think that's one of the directions that we need to look at. And that's only one of many directions, including we need to look at these 8 issues right here. But we also need to make people feel comfortable. People of color feel comfortable with police officers. Police officers feel comfortable with people of color. Ride-alongs, for example, are an excellent way of doing that. When you get to get people to talk to each other, to see each other as human beings, not as some sort of suspicious group. So I think that I wanted to start that conversation.
Commissioner Carp, I'd like to just add one thing to what you just said. When John Lewis was being buried yesterday, and I was looking at issues concerning his life, he issued an invitation and said that love was a better way to live. to stand up and to do right. He said we should say no to hate and no to racism and lay down the burden of hate. And when we see something that's not right, we've just got to do something about it. We've got to stop it. And we should have the ability to forgive also. Just wanted to add that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wise words. Anybody else? I should mention, I heard from Lee, who is in, I believe, Michigan, and is not able to participate today. And he will be very interested in reviewing the recording of this meeting, but he's not able to be here. I apologize. I should have said that at the outset.
I think it might be valuable if Latrice shares with us. She has done a little survey of what other communities in Iowa have done to address this challenge. So if Latrice would share that, it'll give us an idea to see what's happening in places like Iowa City and Cedar Rapids, I believe, is one of them.
I think that was appended to the agenda. Yeah, it's what we're seeing now on the screen. So hopefully people have reviewed that.
Do you want me to read what the report says on that, or are we?
That would be my preference, so that everyone could hear it. I mean, hard to just, try and catch a scrolling text. Let's see what, like what's happening in Cedar Rapids. View. What's, I think that what's happening in Iowa City, that would be important to actually hear and perhaps.
So this document was shared in the comments as well. For anybody who wants to have a copy for later, it's also available online. So the city of Cedar Rapids, the city council moved forward on 4 of the 7 items that were requested by the Cedar Rapids Advocates for Social Justice. They had 7 requests that the Civil Rights Commission supported. Those were to form an independent citizens review board, make significant investments in diversity, equity and inclusion, ban chokeholds, meet and neck maneuvers, and strengthen use of force standards. Decriminalize minor marijuana crimes and other low-level offenses, impose strict body camera provisions, make negotiations between law enforcement and municipal representatives public, abolish qualified immunity. In Dubuque, they were developing a citizens review board in collaboration with the NAACP, or strengthening one that had enforcement authority. Sioux City Council was considering the purchase of body cameras. They, up until this point, I don't believe they've had body cameras, and there had been a lot of pushback to obtaining body cameras. So that was a big initiative there. The city of West Des Moines, the mayor signed the mayor's pledge. That pledge would have them review their use of force policies. Engage communities by including a diverse range of input, experiences, and stories in their review. Report the findings of this report to the community and seek feedback. Reform the community's police use of force policies. So their first step was signing the pledge and then creating a community member task force of 8 people. So they're going to review those policies and then provide a presentation of their findings. And they're currently meeting weekly for 2 to 3 hours at a time with the goal of late August to present findings. And hopefully with those findings, they'll be able to reform the use of force policies. And they're also in the research phase of developing a community review board for the police. Des Moines passed an ordinance that prohibits racial bias in traffic stops and other police actions. It banned pretextual stops based on race and requires training on implicit bias and de-escalation techniques. It passed a resolution expressing its support of the decriminalization of marijuana and establishing a task force to minimize the enforcement for possession of marijuana for personal use. Iowa City strengthened their existing independent review board, and then they passed a 17-point resolution addressing disparities. The points addressed by the resolution were, by December 15th, they would have a preliminary plan to restructure the Iowa City Police Department towards community policing. They would allocate $1 million in city funds to promote racial equity and social justice. They were expanding efforts to increase the number of minorities employed by the city. Receive a report by August 1st from the city manager's office on the Iowa City Police Department's involvement in the use of gas and flashbang devices during the protest in Iowa City on June 3rd. Create an ad hoc Truth and Reconciliation Commission to carry out restorative justice on racial injustice in the city by October 1st. Change the 2021 City Council's legislative priorities to advocate for more criminal justice reform and enhance the authority of the Community Review Board. Expand the use of the city's racial equity toolkit to City Council and local business partners. By January 1st, 2021, they would receive a report and recommendations on changes to the Community Review Board. Provide a detailed expenditure summary of the police budget on the city's website. Support divestment of the Johnson County Sheriff's Office MRAP vehicle and obtain a report on military grade equipment owned by the Iowa City Police Department. They would direct the city manager to ban the use of strokeholds by police. Direct the city manager to ensure officers working in Iowa City have not committed serious misconduct. Review and revise the Iowa City Police Department's body-worn cameras and in-car recorder systems. Revise Iowa City Police Department's general orders to require officers to intervene and stop excessive force, and work with the Public Art Advisory Committee and Black artists to provide opportunities for artistic expression by the Black Lives Matter movement and communities of color. Prohibit the use of tear gas, rubber bullets, and flashbangs against peaceful protesters. And beginning in 2021, Juneteenth, which is June 19th, shall be a city holiday. The city of Urbandale is expediting the purchase of additional police body cameras. There's a misspelling there. To cover its investigative division. The city already has body cameras for its patrol division.
You know, it was interesting to see the range of things that are being done locally. Some had 1, some had 17 or more. Nobody said, you know, check us out. We don't need to be improved. We've got it all. And so I'm impressed by the range. And what's good for one is not good for everyone. And I think our goal is to, you know, find out what's best for Davenport, for us.
Anybody else?
Hey, Janelle, I see over in the chat room, I think the mayor wants to say something. So I'm not sure if you're looking at that or not.
I did see that. Thanks, Mike. Do people feel that now's a good time to hear from the mayor?
It's always a good time to hear from the mayor.
Yeah, I agree. So Latrice, if you can make that happen, we'd appreciate that. And my neighbor is mowing, so I'm gonna try.
So do you have me?
Yes.
Yeah, we hear you.
Thank you. So I just want to say thank you to Janelle and Rabbi Karp and the Civil Rights Commission for holding this so folks can feel that they have a voice with you guys. I want to say thanks to the City Council for allowing here at Chambers to another avenue for you guys to have folks that have another venue to talk and voice their concerns with you, because it's important. I just want to give a few points of updates or feedback that we've heard also. So, you know, the police chief recently, a few weeks ago, briefed the city council on some of the things that go on here in Davenport. And many of the 8 issues that are talked about, we have taken seriously and either are or continuing to improve those policies and how we do that. We're working with the DTAP's been going on for a while, and for somebody mentioned that it might have fallen off. It has not. It still goes on. The chief and others and the city administrator meet. So do I with folks, but the DTAP still happens. Myself, the Bettendorf Mayor Gallagher, the chairman of the supervisors, Tony Kenobi, meet with, and just Thursday met with the president of the NAACP, Mr. Roberson, the president of LULAC, Ms. Jasmine Newton-Butt, and Pastor Grimes, one of the leaders of Churches United. We have that ongoing talk about what we can do, and we lately have focused on recruiting and retention. The last set of police officers, 4 or 5 that I was happy and the council was proud to put into our force were officers that certainly don't look like me. One of them, African-American male, grew up here in Davenport, went to Central High School, and is a great member of our community. We continue to do that. I have assigned and worked with our HR department to have what we call an enhanced communication strategy and focus to recruit minority police officers. We have 2 people assigned, one to handle the non-public safety side of the house and one to head the public safety side of the house. We are committed to taking workshops and orientation centers out in the community to include Lincoln School. I met with Pastor Kirk and Tracy White just this week on how we can work with Lincoln, and that being a focus of some of the things we're working on. I know there's a concern about the resolution of hate. We're proud to do it, but I wanted to work with the Civil Rights Commission and to develop and process and move forward with the ordinance. So that's still on the table to work. Concerning body cameras, I know that's always a concern. We have 155 officers out of 163 that have body cameras, and we require any police officer that goes out into the public outside of a building that has engagement to have their body camera on, and we have them in the police cars also. So that's a thing we do, and the thing we've been doing, and that's a focus to make sure everything is recorded and seen. We have a state policy that we follow on chokeholds in the use of deadly force. We require extensive training, and before an officer can ride by themselves in a police car, after they get out of the academy, they must go through at least 6 months of training with another officer on all the particular pieces. I was honored to do a ride-along 2 weeks ago and saw the work that they do, especially on the social side. So I just want to give you some updates, especially on the recruiting side and the meetings we're having that maybe is not out in the public so much, but so you know, we're committed to talking and working with you and all the other groups to enhance and provide better policies, better actions with our police in our community and open. And anybody who calls the mayor's office and leaves their name and number, I will call you back and I will talk to you. Just this week, I did over 70 callbacks. Some days I do 60. So I'm happy. Anytime you call, anytime you want to call back and want to talk to me, I'm happy to do that, meet with you whenever that is, wherever that is. So I just wanted to, Janelle, give you a quick update on some of the things that are continuing to go on. And then with the NAACP, LULAC, and Churches United, besides Mayor Gallagher, Mr. Kenobi, and myself having lunch just Thursday, and we've done that a couple times now to work on, again, the focus of recruiting on Thursdays. We kind of talk about a different subject and how we can do it by the Davenport assigning people to make sure that happens. The chief and the city administrator with Chief Kimball from Bettendorf and Sheriff Wayne also do that in a separate way to focus on the particular issues and criteria that many of you have brought up today. So we encourage you and everyone else to have this dialogue. The city council and I look forward to that continued discussion and to provide guidance and policy and actions as we move forward. But it's important to hear everybody's view and have everybody's thoughts so we can take under consideration all of those things. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Janelle, can I make one other comment, please?
Sure.
I just want, I know that the NAACP, LULAC, and others are working for some change. But this document that we have on the screen now is the document that these organizations ought to be working to implement here in Davenport. And I can tell you that I will be speaking with my president at NAACP to see where we are at an NAACP as far as speaking and talking with the mayor and others in that forum as far as getting these implemented, because all of these are good sense changes that we can make immediately to make Davenport more safer and equitable for all and stuff. So, and I know I saw my president's name on this list, and I know he's listening. So, and I'm pretty upfront about my intent, and I think what we ought to do and where we need to go. And so, I just applaud the opportunity to speak here today. And but these 7 changes that we have here ought to be something that we are immediately talking about, and body cams ought to be the law. Chokeholds has to be barred, period. There has to be no reason why a chokehold is used in this community or anywhere in this country, period. So I would just offer that up and thank Mayor Manson and Chief Savorsky for all that they're doing here. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks, Mike. And I guess I wasn't clear. I mean, are you suggesting that what are you suggesting we do with these 7 items? I mean, are you wanting to move them forward, or are you just endorsing them in principle?
Well, I think it's something that we ought to take into consideration and discuss them, and we can come back at a later date. But I do think it's something that could be implemented from a personal view and make changes here in Davenport. So I really do so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have some thoughts. I
Thanks,
think we've received a lot of information today. There's a lot here to process from all those wonderful comments that we heard, and for so much that's been written in the chat. And we have already collected a lot of information. I think we needed the opportunity to process it. I think that we need to schedule another special meeting where we can, seriously sit down and compile what will be our formal recommendations to the city council, to the police department. And I would like to get to include in that special meeting invitations. I mean, first of all, it's an open meeting, so the whole community can sit in on the meeting, but include invitations to the mayor, to the police chief, to the head of the police union, and to others who, as we consider who else to be able to sit in on the conduct of the meeting, not as observers, but as participants to help us formulate our recommendations. I don't think that we can walk away today with set recommendations. I think we have to do some thinking and sorting it all out and processing. But I'd like to see us hold that special meeting soon. We have a Civil Rights Commission meeting coming up, a week from Tuesday on the 11th?
Yes.
At which we will have to do our usual business, our standard business. So we should once again reserve a special meeting on top of that, apart from that, to focus on these issues. I don't know how the rest of the commission feels about that, so let's see.
Henry, I know I don't have a problem with that, so I'm in agreement with that.
I'm in agreement also.
Janelle, can I speak?
Sure.
Okay. I know we have this document in front of us right now. And, you know, as a researcher myself, documents like these, there's not one blanket policy or not one blanket research that will be effective, you know, in every single thing. And so, you know, I think we have to remember that looking at these are the things that's been done by other communities. But we have to think about, is this going to work for our community? And also, you know, as a community, I think we all have to work together instead of just saying the police department have to do something. I think the community as well have to do something, and we can all meet in the middle. So that I just wanted to leave everybody with that.
So Ruby, would you like to have another special meeting? I mean, is that, yeah.
I
That's
agree with that. I don't think one meeting will solve it all. I think it would be a continuous conversation with everybody.
So Henry, I'm hearing you suggest that do you want to schedule now another special meeting?
I think we can schedule the special meeting if you want to have it before the 11th, that would be one way. Or if we want to have our general meeting, a monthly meeting on the 11th, and at that meeting schedule the special meeting, that would also work.
Uh-huh. Well, and I would say it seems to me that people really need to do their homework for the next meeting and really go through, you know, all the materials we have, any other reading that you've done, any other, you know, local governments who have taken action that you think we should consider, and be ready to bring your list of things that you'd like to talk about, you know, bring that to the next meeting. So I guess it's a question of how soon people think they can work on that.
Are we thinking about having a meeting on the 11th before
Oh, we have a meeting on the 11th.
Our regular meeting is the 11th.
Saturday before the 11th?
So the 8th?
I need to.
Was that too soon?
That's next week, right?
Yeah.
That would be a week from today.
I have a problem with every other Saturday. We have a son with autism who lives in a group home in Iowa City, and every other Saturday we bring him home for the weekend. This is an off weekend. The 8th, next Saturday, is an on weekend, so I'll be on the road to Iowa City getting my son. So I wouldn't be able to participate on the 8th.
Well, are we, do we feel that Saturday is best, or is there another day?
I think that's when most people are available.
Uh-huh. So then I guess we're looking at maybe the 15th. That'd be after our next meeting, but if that's what needs to be.
Let's do it.
So the 15th is the 10 o'clock time good?
That works.
Absolutely.
I would entertain a motion to that effect.
I so move that we schedule this meeting to be held on the 15th of August at 10 o'clock.
I second the motion.
Oh.
Oh, go ahead.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising a real hand or indicating on the participant list. Any opposed?
Is Richard gone? Did he leave the meeting?
I don't know,
I don't see him.
but we still have the 5 of us, so we're still a quorum. And we'll hope that time works for Lee and Richard. And now, Henry, did I understand you to say that we'll be issuing special invitations to the mayor, to Chief Sikorsky, and to the head of the police union?
That's my opinion, okay?
Well,
That's
maybe
my
that,
opinion. Others may have different opinions. Others may want to go that list beyond those 3. Yeah, so,
are there other members in the community whom we would like to invite? Especially, I mean, bearing in mind it's an open meeting.
Janelle, I think you cover everybody when you're making it an open meeting.
Yeah, well, we thought that this time.
but there is a difference. There is a difference.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is in an open meeting, we have set times for public comment, and and when we're conducting business, everyone else is muted. But I'm talking about inviting them to join, to be part of our commission conversation. They won't be able to vote, but they'll be able, but to have them not muted and contributing participants. So that's different than them being part of the public.
Okay, that's Henry. I don't have a problem with that, and so I definitely would love to speak and talk with the police union president and have that conversation. Absolutely.
Are we talking about a separate meeting or the same meeting as our commission?
No, we're talking about the special meeting on the.
Brian Krupp has written in the comments that the mayor is proposing a joint meeting.
With the city council?
I've lost the comment now. There are so many, but I assume that's what he meant.
I thought I saw one where the mayor was proposing a joint meeting with the city council, and I'm not clear if that is to be a separate meeting just with the council, or if the council would also be invited to this upcoming meeting.
Well, can I just make a suggestion? Just
either way,
have us, the Civil Rights Commission, the City Council, the mayor, the police chief, and the police union president. Have all those stakeholders in one meeting.
Is that the sense of the group, or do we think we need a separate meeting with the city council? I think we could do it either way. It's just a matter of what everybody thinks.
I think just have,
That sounds good to me.
Okay, so Ruby, did you want to make a motion to that effect?
Yeah, so I make a motion to, I don't know when, but to, have the Civil Rights Commission, City Council, the police chief, the mayor's office, and the union police president, to have a meeting.
Well, just to clarify, would that be the August 15th meeting?
I thought the August 15th meeting is public.
Well, this would be a public meeting. I mean, we can't have a non-public meeting.
So I guess I would suggest that all those stakeholders invited to the August 15th meeting.
I second the motion.
Mike, did you have a concern? I wasn't quite sure of your statements before. Did you have a concern about the police union?
No. What I wanted to do is maybe amend Ruby's motion to include the Davenport superintendent as well. And so, because some of these things kind of bleed over into the area of SROs and things like that. So I think it would be useful to have him. I mean,
Yeah,
I think so. So
good call.
So is that a friendly amendment to Ruby's motion to add the Davenport Schools Superintendent?
as long as she doesn't object.
Oh, yeah. Davenport School Super.
I second the motion.
Thank you, Etheline. So on the table is the motion that the August 15th meeting, which we have already set, will include invitations to the mayor, Davenport Police Chief, the head of the Davenport Police Union, the Davenport City Council, and the Davenport Superintendent of Schools.
Yes.
All those in favor, any further additions, any other discussion?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
My take on it is different. I've listened to this meeting, and there are many suggestions that have been made. My way of looking at it is that we ought to have the special meeting, but it ought to be focused on sorting through the suggestions, and we ought to put a priority on finding workable solutions that have been suggested by the people who've participated in this meetings and listing those out, and then get together with the superintendent and the others to see how we implement those things. I think the thing that's really important is that we show that we're listening to people, and then that we implement the solutions in a conversation with the other leaders of the city and government.
Does anybody else have thoughts about that? I guess one way to look at it is that, you know, if we're going to be talking about reforms that would impact the police, it would be good to have them there so they could tell us what they're already working on or what they've already done or how this would affect them, whether they think it's workable. The same with the SROs, having the superintendent there. It sounds like there are, you know, there are arguments both ways on whether to have resource officers in school. So I don't know, it might be good to have those again, stakeholders at the table so that we could have a more fulsome discussion. I don't know what other people think.
First, I guess I don't understand, Richard, why having those other stakeholders would negate that we would be taking into very serious account the comments made, the statements made by people from the community here today, and if they wish to send emails, and also from Latrice's earlier report. One thing doesn't negate the other. That all information would be brought into that meeting.
Well,
also,
the point I'm trying to make is that we've heard a lot of input, got a lot of suggestions. It would be good to distill those suggestions and get them on paper before we try to talk to other people. We ought to be in a consensus that we've gone through and we've looked at these things and we put them on paper so that we all know what we're talking about when we go in. Right now, I'm struggling to retain and recall all the things that have been said. And I'd like to get that down and on paper so that it's right in front of me and we've got something really solid to look at.
well, we have a recording of what they said, and we can get that transcribed and distributed with the packet that would be part of the preparation for the August 11th meeting. I also think that, yeah, if we do that separately, then we come to the other parties like the city council and the police department, police union, and it's, yeah, here are are, here are our items, and it's kind of saying this is what we want. There's not a sense of cooperation, and I think that at one point that I think that before we finalize our recommendations, I think we need to engage in these other parties in dialogue and hear what they have to say. Now, when we, as after that, if we when we put together what we want to take to the police department and the city council, when we decide that, it's taking into account all of that conversation, and we will decide. Ultimately, we will decide what our recommendations will be. But it will be part of that process is having that cooperative dialogue.
And this particular, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Mike. I talk too much.
Okay. In this particular instance, I do think we can put the information on paperwork, and we can digest it and determine in between meetings what we support and what not, what the commission, in particular we support, and take it back and talk about it at our special meeting. And so maybe, Richard, that will give you an opportunity to digest and figure what you support and what you don't support, and we can make a decision at a later date and stuff. So so I think we move forward with where we are at, and we do it in a manner that's transparent, and that we are doing the work that we need to do in order to make some change here in Davenport. Thank you.
So does anyone want to call the question?
I'll call the question.
Okay, thank you, Henry. Henry calls the question. The motion on the floor, as I have stated before, is to invite to the August 15th meeting, the mayor, the police chief, the head of the police union, the city council, and the Davenport superintendent of schools. That has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, those in favor, please signify by raising a hand or indicate on the participant list. Those opposed?
Nobody opposing?
Hearing none, I think that the motion has carried.
Okay.
Is there any other business before the commission at this time?
Mayor, I'm sorry, Chairperson, I've gotten the little book of race and restorative justice that was recommended to us. I've received that, and I'll read it this weekend. And if someone else wants to borrow it to read, feel free to let me know.
Thank you, Ethelene.
And we agreed that we would have opportunity for comment.
Yes, but I'm just trying to determine that we're done with this portion of the meeting. If so, then Latrice, do we have any other members of the public who are asking to address the commission?
Yes.
Yes, this is Amber Bordolo. I really like this report, and I think to see all these other cities in Iowa, work towards progression on this, and Davenport, we're still quite far behind. It's quite embarrassing. But if you look at number 2 on that report, it is to remove SROs from the schools. The mayor has brought before the commission Wednesday to increase funding for more SROs. So that means that we're going to be not in school as often because half of our schooling is going to be virtual this year, yet we're going to increase SROs. That is very concerning. So to say that we want to work towards this, yeah, on Wednesday, the mayor is asking for more funding for SROs. If he's still on this call, perhaps he can respond to if he will consider postponing that request. Mayor, are you still on the call?
I'm willing to comment if you'll let me, Janelle.
Go ahead.
Okay, so yes, the continuation or redo of the contract with the school district for SROs, not increasing funding, just to continue what we have, is on the city council agenda, committee of the whole for Wednesday for discussion. I don't know what the question is, but it's on our agenda, and yes, the city council will discuss it, and yes, the public can offer their thoughts. Is there something else?
I think that's it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any other public comments?
There was another person in the meeting, Daniel Teague, and then Brian Krupp said that there are 3 people in council chambers.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
We can hear you.
We can hear you, Mr. Teague.
Breaking up.
Yeah, can't understand what you're saying.
Sorry.
Grace and peace. Boots on the ground, and can you hear me now? Hello?
Better.
Yeah.
Better.
Okay, I'm Pastor Daniel Teague, founder of the Quad City Boots on the Ground, former vice president of the Davenport NAACP. You know, listening to this stuff, this is a kind of offensive conversation we're having here, because first of all, I've heard nobody say anything about the attack on the director from the Davenport NAACP. That's offensive. The second part is we shouldn't have to keep asking to be treated like normal human beings where we live at. And the fact that we got to keep having meetings after meetings after meetings to have this same conversation that we had 5 years ago, 10 years ago, we're not getting nothing done here. DCAP is a joke. That needs to be dismantled and redone from the bottom up. 5 years ago, we knew that there were cops that racially profiled here in Davenport by itself. We stood before city council asking to get those cops removed off the streets. And to sit here and hear the police union chief or whoever he is talk about that the police don't treat people different, this is offensive. And it ain't like anybody that hears my voice doesn't understand what's going on. Why doesn't it just happen? Why don't we just get rid of the ones that are doing this? This is crazy that we as Black people have to keep begging, coming like we're crawling in to ask somebody to treat us like normal human beings here. This doesn't make sense no more. This is the same conversation we could have with my grandfather and my great-grandfather of what was going on back then. This doesn't make sense that we have to keep having meetings after meeting after meeting to ask to be treated right in this country. This is crazy. And this attack that's being launched on the director for doing her job, this is crazy. I don't understand what we're doing here. We're dealing with people who are disconnected from the community that is being affected by everything that's going on, and everybody's given their perspective of what's going on, but it still happens in the communities. This doesn't make sense no more. We had the same conversation 5 years ago, and we're probably going to have it again 5 years from now. When is change going to take place where it just stops, where we just make a decision as human beings that this has to stop? We shouldn't have to keep asking Davenport police. We shouldn't have to ask the mayors. We shouldn't have to ask different agencies to please treat us like we're human beings. This starts to be sickening and tiring. Then you got half the community that don't even want to say anything no more because they've never seen no change. I'm done.
Thank you.
Hey, just for the record, Elder Tig, I did speak to the fact about the vicious attack against Director Lacey and Rabbi Cobbs, just for the record. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
You know, we have a couple here.
Thank you.
My name is Arthur Anderson, lifetime resident of the city of Davenport. I would request that the chair reserve the council meeting for your meeting, our council room for your meeting. It's bigger, holds more members of the public, the media. It can be recorded and put online, and it gives credibility to open and transparent government. Now, I would like to request that all the members of the commission think twice about putting your name to any of this. You're fueling fire, and it's involving domestic terrorism, and that's what it is that's occurring in other parts of this country right now. I have right here on this podium 3 documents. One is called the National Institute of Justice. It was from the year 2000. I printed it out. I have the other one, Don't Shoot, Race-Based Trauma and Police Brutality. And I have a copy of the report you've been given. I have highlighted over 95% of the report that you were given today that you had on your screen has been taken, cut and edited, or cut and pasted from Don't Shoot. It's not been indented, quoted, or otherwise documented about who it comes from, who the original source editor. In academia, we call this plagiarism. Now, I'm going to leave these documents with the mayor so that he can copy them and share them with the council. And I'd like to see him share them with you, and so you have them for your next meeting. You're being used and manipulated here, because if you take the time to read through these 2 reports, you're giving a slanted view. The one on national justice says that 80% of the police that were in the report, they don't buy into this code of silence. And the one on Don't Shoot, it says on page 5, or no, page 4, the statistics also vary depending on where you live. A lot of the information in these reports are coming from cities like Los Angeles, New York, Ohio, Illinois, places that have 3 to 10 times the population of the entire state of Iowa. We don't have a problem here, with the exception of one person that spoke about his son. In that case, you could go to internal affairs, you could attend a city council meeting, speak to the mayor, the elected officials, the city administrator. You could file a complaint with the Civil Rights Office, assuming that you're going to be open to the public. And if not, you could go to the state. You've got social media if you want to go that route, and you've got a lawyer if you want to sue. Another part on page 5 cites there are 4 states. Iowa is one of them. The laws in place require police to attempt other types of force when reasonable before shooting somebody. You really need to read these reports in their full context. You don't have the legal jurisdiction to supervise the police. And you need to step back from this before you go too far. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Lucina Hodges again. Just briefly, with regards to the system, with all due respect, I know that what we're proposing is police reform, but we have other parts to this circle, which is the courts, the public defenders, as well as the police. So if you take and fix one wheel and the other wheels are still messed up, you know, it's not going to really do any good. So I think that whole issue, that whole revolving door, that system needs to be dismantled and rebuilt. Please consider our children, the biracial kids. You know, people are taught behavior. So what I submitted to the mayor just now was that the classes that should be mandatory before you even become a police officer, one of them should be that cultural diversity, because it gives you an idea of who you're, you know, the people. Not saying that it's really gonna teach you, because it's hard to be to walk in someone else's shoes if you really haven't been there. So, but I think that that's a great idea. It actually helped me to learn about other cultures and deal with people. So I think it's really important. And the profiling, like I came here today on purpose with my tattoos and my piercings showing, because all of us, just because we have tattoos or piercings doesn't make us a bad person, and that's what the norm says. Though I'm a good person, you know, but because I wear these, I get looked at as not being a good person. So I think it's really important that the police take that class. Also a psychology class, I think they should be mandatory. I don't think that they should be able to carry a gun without being mentally stable. So I think that's a proposal that should be put into recruiting and training the police. But furthermore, I just think that I cry. I literally cry tears. And I watched a video of a 10-year-old boy who was out in his yard playing basketball, and he ran and hid behind the truck because he saw the police, and then come out until the police drove by. That's sad. That's sad. And even as a little girl, I always wondered why people were like that. But then I learned through taking those classes that people were taught that. And so then if their minds can be reconditioned, maybe change can happen. You know what I mean? That's all I gotta say.
Hello.
Thank
It's
you.
Henry Hodges again. So I was sitting there and I'm watching and I'm looking at the staff, and everyone wants to plan the meeting and this for the meeting. I do appreciate your effort to diligently plan this meeting and get it planned soon. I do agree with certain aspects of your planning of your meeting, but I do believe that we still, within that meeting, with all the invitations you guys had, which I agree with all the invitations you had, I'm not disagreeing, but I do believe, as you guys are hinting on the public side of things, that there should be, I would like to be someone that could speak at a public meeting regardless. I would like public members to always have a voice at our public meetings. There should not be any muting of any public members that are willing to take time out to come to your meetings, because even though there's a lot of diversity here on your board and your council and everything, there still are some people that don't walk the walk of lives of the people most affected by the policing. So I do believe that at a public meeting that people should have the right to speak up, and that you shouldn't have anyone wanting to go behind closed doors and discuss some things to bring back out to the public as far as the transparency should go. So I do agree with your scheduled meeting. I hope that it does stay on track. I would like to be there, and I'd like to see what you guys came up with in your 11th meeting on the 15th, to see if you listened today, or if you took in anything today, or if you're willing to start some immediate change just as fast as you scheduled that meeting. That's the type of things I would like to see. Once again, I'm Henry Hodges Jr. I'm a lifelong resident of Davenport, and I hope you guys see my face and hear my name for a long time to come.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yes. Kelly Cruz, I unmuted you.
Hi, this is Kelly Cruz. I live over in Rock Island, but I'm in Davenport often. And I just kind of wanted to say that we need to make sure that people's, you know, the Black and brown folks and disabled folks and LGBTQ folks and everybody whose voice isn't, you know, normally not heard is heard. It's good to have a meeting and have everybody be able to speak, but you know, when the first few speakers are, you know, white people that haven't, you know, experienced this personally, you know, and then to have people come in and be actively trying to prevent what this meeting is for is not good either. You know, I live below the hill in Rock Island. My neighbors are not domestic terrorists. You know, that's, I think that it's really hard to get people who have been on the receiving end of the bad treatment by the police to actually feel comfortable coming forward and speaking when they're going to have to sit there and listen to stuff like that. So I'm not an expert in this field. I don't know what the answer is. I know in the leftist contingent over in Iowa that we use what's called progressive stack to make sure that you know, people that are from marginalized identities get to speak first. That might help. Something like that, because it's not very good, you know, to have to go on for a really long time because 75% of the people speaking are going to be, you know, white people that haven't, you know, experienced or witnessed it directly. And then there's actually going to be people that are taking up a lot of time purposely trying to speak against what this meeting is about. So thank you.
Thank you. Any others, Latrice?
Looks like Brian Krupp, but I don't know if that's, his hand is just still up. Maybe there's no one else there in the council chambers. I don't think so.
Oh. Janelle, we're good down here.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for your participation today. We appreciate that. It sounds like that's all the public comment and presentation. I would just remind everyone that our next regular meeting is Tuesday, August 11th at noon. And our special meeting will be Saturday, August 15th at 10 o'clock. They will both be Zoom meetings, I think, with our current continued COVID experience that we need to continue meeting this way. And I wish that weren't so, but I guess if anyone has strong feelings, I certainly would listen to that now. But I guess my inclination would be to keep meeting via Zoom. Any thoughts to the contrary?
Absolutely. I agree with Zoom.
Yeah.
I have a child.
Just for the people, for the public, so that, you know, that listening public, that they should know that our meetings are open meetings, and they can go to the Davenport Civil Rights Commission website to see the agenda and to, you know, register to attend those meetings. We do not hold closed door meetings. That may be a misconception. So please do. Feel free to attend any of our meetings while we're on Zoom. God willing, someday we'll be back to in-person meetings, and
Yes.
we welcome all members of the public to join us.
Yes.
And every meeting has an opportunity for public comment. The public always has an opportunity
Always,
to
yes,
share.
yes. Thank you, Henry. Anything else for the good of the order? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we close the meeting for any more business for today.
I second the motion.
12:23.
All those in
All in
favor? Any opposed? Thank you all.
All right. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Everybody
Good
have a
weekend,
good
all.
weekend.
Left of
Take
it.
care.
And enjoy some of that sunshine.
Stay safe, all.
All right.
You too.
You too, thanks.